Welcome, God's chosen ones. Be cautious of the graves you dig for others. You might just find yourself at the bottom of one. Throughout history, both ancient wisdom and modern stories carry this profound truth. The traps we set for others have a strange way of turning back on us when we least expect it. It's not just a coincidence, it's a divine principle in motion. Whether you believe in karma or divine justice, there's a cosmic irony at play here, a brutal twist of fate that spares no one, especially those who thought they could get away with crossing a chosen one. Think of the story of Haman, who sought to destroy Mordecai, only to find himself hanged on the very gallows he built for his enemy. Esther 7:10. Do you see the pattern? The very plans your enemies have devised for your downfall are being set up to fall back on them. Here's something to ponder. Studies show that 85% of schemes driven by jealousy or malice will inevitably backfire. Isn't it strange how the universe, perhaps guided by God's hand, has a way of flipping the script? One moment, your enemies believe they've won, and the next, they're facing the consequences of their actions. This is what the Bible means when it says, "Do not be deceived. God cannot be mocked. A man reaps what he sows." Galatians 6:7. Isn't it amazing how the truth always prevails in the end? And if this message resonates with you, I want you to type 77 in the comments to declare your victory. And don't forget to support this channel through Super Thanks if this word has touched your heart. God is moving on your behalf. Now, as you sit here reflecting on your own challenges, consider this. What if the very people who've tried to destroy you have unknowingly set in motion their own fall from grace? What if their efforts to break you are actually the keys to their own downfall? It's as though divine timing is on your side, and no matter how much they plot, the outcome is already sealed. Karma, or should I say God's divine justice, is often more precise than we could ever imagine. So, I invite you to take a deep breath and recognize the power at work behind the scenes. Your enemies are facing a reality they never expected. Have you noticed how their plans are crumbling? How the forces they set into motion are beginning to turn on them? Trust me, you're not alone in this. God's chosen ones, your enemies have been set up. Number 1, their trap became their own cage. Your enemies thought they had it all figured out, meticulously laying traps and constructing plans with the belief that they would see you fall. Their strategy seemed flawless. They believed they had the upper hand, positioning themselves as the winners in this hidden game. But here's the ironic twist. The very traps they set for you have now become their own prison. It's as if the universe itself was working behind the scenes, ensuring that their deceitful schemes would backfire. Do you recall the story of King Saul, who tried to trap David by throwing spears at him, only to find himself constantly on the run, pursued by his own actions? 1 Samuel 18:10-11. Saul's obsession with bringing David down led to his own demise, a direct consequence of his own cruelty. The same principle applies here. When you mess with a chosen one, every move you make to tear them down will inevitably backfire. These enemies didn't just set traps in the form of physical threats. They unleashed manipulative games, whispered lies, and sowed chaos around you, trying to confuse and disorient you. They were convinced their plan was foolproof, that they had crafted a web you couldn't escape. They believed that by pulling the strings from behind the scenes, they'd be the ones in control, laughing as you struggled. But they made one fatal mistake. They didn't anticipate the silent but powerful forces that work on behalf of those who walk with pure intentions, the divine protection that surrounds God's chosen ones. As they threw negativity your way, trying to discredit and diminish you, every ounce of that energy circled back on them. What they thought was a brilliant strategy turned into a boomerang of misery. Do not be deceived, God cannot be mocked. A man reaps what he sows. Galatians 6:7. It's a divine law. Whatever they intended to use against you has now turned into their own relentless reminder of their failure. Their traps are not merely snares, they are their own chains, tightening with every effort to cover up the mess they created. Now, they're stuck in a cycle of chaos, frantically trying to patch up the holes in their plans. Each time they think they've fixed one issue, another rears its head, exposing the cracks in their schemes. Their desperation to escape their self-inflicted turmoil only adds to their stress and confusion. The more they try to regain control, the more their plans unravel. Isn't it fascinating how when you attempt to destroy someone else, you end up destroying yourself? The more your enemies try to manipulate the situation, the deeper they dig themselves into a hole. They thought they were clever, but now they are trapped by the very forces they tried to control. They can't understand how things spiraled out of their control. They're angry, frustrated, and bewildered, unable to escape the consequences of their own actions. This is the ultimate irony. In their obsessive need to bring you down, they unknowingly set up their own downfall. The very schemes they devised to ruin you are now the chains that bind them, and they have no idea how to break free. The universe, or perhaps God himself, has turned the tables in a way they never saw coming. They are now facing the consequences of their own design, and the question is, how long will it take for them to realize that they've been the ones trapped all along? Are you seeing how their plan has unraveled, how the very forces they set in motion are now closing in on them? How much longer can they keep running from the truth that they've created their own undoing? It's almost poetic, isn't it? The irony of watching them squirm as their own plans turn against them. But this is what happens when you mess with a chosen one. In the end, the trap they set for you becomes the cage they're stuck in. Number 2, your absence is amplifying their downfall. When you walked away, you didn't just leave a room. You left a gaping void in the lives of those who once thrived on your presence. It's like the light suddenly went out, and everything that once felt solid began to unravel. What they didn't realize in the midst of their arrogance and pride is that your energy, your influence, was the silent force holding everything together. You were the steady hand, the quiet strength, the one who stabilized the chaos around them without them even knowing it. They assumed they were in control, that they were the ones calling the shots, that everything was fine. But the moment you stepped back, the true reality set in, and it hit them harder than they could ever have imagined. It's like a house of cards, a structure that looked solid from the outside, but was incredibly fragile beneath the surface. And once you walked away, the cards started falling. Unless the Lord builds the house, the builders labor in vain. Psalm 127, 1-1. Your presence was the divine support, the invisible thread connecting everything. Now that you're gone, they're left holding pieces that no longer fit, scrambling to piece together what once seemed secure. Do you ever wonder if they've realized how much they relied on you, even though they may never admit it? It's a painful truth to confront, and one that they are slowly waking up to. They took from you your support, your inspiration, and your unwavering presence. But now, with you gone, they're running on empty, and they can't fill that void with distractions. They thought they had everything under control, but now the illusion is crumbling. Think of the story of Samson, whose strength was tied to his hair, a divine gift that he didn't fully appreciate until it was gone. When Delilah betrayed him and cut his hair, he was left powerless, vulnerable, and exposed. Judges 16:19-21. His absence of strength was not just physical but spiritual. a reminder of how we often don't realize what's holding us up until it's gone. Your absence has created a similar void in their lives, and now they're feeling exposed in ways they never expected. What's even more unsettling for them is that the stability they once thought they had wasn't real. It was a mirage, a fragile illusion that was sustained only by your influence. Without you, their world is slowly slipping into chaos, and no matter how hard they try, they can't seem to recreate the peace you once brought. They're scrambling to find new sources of strength and security, but nothing quite fits the way your presence did. They are now forced to face a truth that's both humbling and haunting. The very person they tried to push away, the person they thought they could discard, was the one holding everything together. And now, as they try to rebuild, they must confront the fact that they've lost far more than they ever gained by pushing you away. The stability, the peace, and the strength they took for granted are gone, and now they must live with the consequences. Isn't it remarkable how when someone dismisses the value of another, they often find that it's only in the absence of that person that they see the full weight of what they've lost? What do you think they're feeling now as they try to pick up the pieces of a life they once took for granted? Are they beginning to realize that you were the one who gave them what they never knew they needed? The path of self-deception they've walked has now led them into a lonely place. And the only question that remains is, can they rebuild without the very foundation that you provided? Time will tell, but the truth is clear. They lost far more than they were willing to admit, and now the consequences of their actions are taking their toll. Number 3, they're haunted by a relentless inner voice. Your enemies thought they could get away with their schemes. They believed they could carry out their deceit and manipulation without facing any consequences. But what they didn't expect was the weight of their own conscience catching up with them. Now they're haunted by a relentless inner voice, a voice that echoes in their minds, reminding them of every single thing they did to you. This isn't just a fleeting thought. It's a constant reminder of their betrayal, their cruelty, and their dishonesty. At first, this guilt starts as a whisper, soft, almost imperceptible, easily dismissed or ignored. They could brush it aside, telling themselves they did nothing wrong, that they were justified. But as time passes, that inner voice becomes louder, more persistent, refusing to be silenced. It's like a constant drumbeat they can't escape, growing louder with every passing day. No matter how much they try to bury it or distract themselves, the guilt remains, gnawing at them from the inside out. This is the truth. You can deceive others. You can convince yourself that your actions are justified, but you can never escape from your own conscience. For we will all stand before God's judgment seat. It is written, "As surely as I live, says the Lord, every knee will bow before me, every tongue will acknowledge God." Romans 14:10-11. This verse reminds us that no one can escape the reckoning for their actions, and no matter how much they try to suppress it, their guilt will eventually make its way to the surface. Your enemies are now living with the consequences of their own choices. Every time they try to move on or forget about the things they did to you, their mind circles back to those moments. They remember the lies, the backstabbing, the manipulation. They can't escape the truth, and it's starting to sink in deeper than they ever imagined. The guilt is like a shadow that follows them wherever they go, reminding them of the damage they caused, of the wrongs they can never undo. They may still appear calm on the outside, perhaps even pretending that they are unaffected, but inside they're struggling with an inner battle they can't seem to win. That nagging guilt doesn't let them rest. It's like the whispers of their wrongdoings are playing on repeat in their minds, haunting them in every quiet moment. Every insult they hurled your way, every dishonest word they spoke, now replays like a movie, forcing them to confront the depth of their own actions. Think of the story of King David and his guilt after orchestrating the death of Uriah, the husband of Bathsheba, 2 Samuel 11:14-15. David tried to hide his sin, but the weight of his actions ate away at him, leading to a moment of reckoning with God. In Psalm 51, he cried out, "For I know my transgressions, and my sin is always before me." The guilt, like a constant companion, followed David, and he had no choice but to confront the truth of his own heart. Your enemies are now in the same position. The guilt they once thought they could ignore is now an inescapable part of their reality. Every lie, every plan, every harmful action they took against you is now part of the inner narrative they can't avoid. And with each passing day, the weight of that guilt only grows heavier, drowning out any peace they thought they would find by attacking you. How long do you think they can endure this internal struggle before it overwhelms them? Can they continue to hide behind their false sense of control, or will the weight of their guilt eventually break them down? It's a sobering thought, isn't it? In the end, their own conscience is the one thing they cannot escape, and that's the ultimate irony of their downfall. Number 4, their success was always built on borrowed time. Your enemies may have experienced a fleeting moment of victory, but what they failed to understand is that their success was never truly theirs. Every step they took, every small triumph they thought they had earned was built on borrowed time. They might have believed that they were ahead, that they had found a shortcut to success, but in reality, their progress was not sustained by their own integrity or hard work. It was built on stolen momentum, an illusion fueled by the energy and opportunities they siphoned off you. They thought they could cheat their way to the top, cutting corners and manipulating others, oblivious to one simple truth: what isn't earned doesn't last. The Bible offers a clear warning in Proverbs 10:2. Ill-gotten treasures have no lasting value, but righteousness delivers from death. Their false success, built on deception, wasn't going to last, and now the inevitable truth is setting in. Reality is finally catching up with them, and the balance is resetting. The advantages they once stole from you, whether it was your time, your resources, or your energy, are slipping away. They thought they had built a strong foundation, but in truth, it was a hollow structure that couldn't support the weight of their ambition. The victories they once flaunted are starting to feel shallow and empty because they were never earned in the first place. There's no joy in a victory that was gained at someone else's expense. This is the essence of what's happening now. Life has a way of evening the scales. In the end, no amount of manipulation, no matter how crafty, can maintain a false sense of success. They're beginning to see that the borrowed time they've been living on has an expiration date, and it's fast approaching. One by one, the things they once valued, such as their influence, reputation, and the stability they boasted about, are slipping away, vanishing as quickly as they gained them. Have you noticed how the things they once used to hold themselves up are now crumbling? The things they were so proud of are losing their power, and they're left grasping at air. It's a humbling experience, to say the least. To realize that everything they thought was secure was nothing more than a fragile facade, built on stolen efforts and fleeting luck. They tried to build success by undermining others, but now that foundation is falling apart, and they have nothing solid to stand on. This is what they're realizing. The success they enjoyed was built on manipulation, and it was never meant to last. It's like the parable of the rich fool in Luke 12:16-21, who thought his wealth was secure and his life complete, only to have it all taken from him in an instant. The wealth he had accumulated was not the result of honest labor or divine blessing, but of selfishness and pride. And just like the rich fool, your enemies are now witnessing the collapse of their own ill-gotten success. As their facade crumbles, they're left with nothing to show for their manipulations and schemes. The hollow victories they once flaunted are now turning to dust, leaving them standing in the ruins of their own making. They may try to salvage their reputation, but the truth is becoming undeniable. They didn't achieve success through hard work, but through exploiting others. And now, all that's left is the wreckage of their own deceit. The question they're left with is this: what now? How can they rebuild when the foundation they relied on was always hollow? The truth is clear. Real success can't be built by taking from others. They may have thought they could deceive the world, but now they must face the consequences of their actions. Every illusion they created, every false front they put up, is collapsing. And now they're left watching helplessly as it all slips away, piece by piece. Number 5. They can't escape the ripple of your growth. Your growth was never something your enemies could contain. No matter how hard they tried to block, distract, or discourage you, while they wasted energy hoping you'd falter, you continued to rise. You kept pushing forward, evolving into something stronger, wiser, and more resilient with each passing day. And now, your progress has reached a point where it can no longer be ignored. It has become a force that not only lifts you up, but shakes everything around you. The Lord will make you the head, not the tail. Deuteronomy 28:13. The momentum you've built is powerful, creating a ripple effect that's changing the landscape for everyone involved, even your enemies. The irony of the situation is that the more you rise, the more they are forced to confront the uncomfortable truth of their own stagnation. As you ascend to new heights, every step you take serves as a glaring reminder of what they could have achieved had they spent their time building up instead of tearing you down. It's as if your growth has become a mirror, reflecting their lack of progress back at them. They see you breaking boundaries they thought would hold you back, and with every accomplishment, they're left standing in the shadows of what could have been. But the path of the righteous is like the morning sun, shining ever brighter till the full light of day. Proverbs 4:18. Your success is like the sun, rising steadily and without apology, forcing them to see their own stagnation as they watch your light expand. This isn't something they can run from or deny. Your rise is like sunlight. It's there, undeniable, illuminating the gaps and insecurities they've tried so hard to mask. They can't hide from the truth of your growth. And the more they try, the more their insecurities become exposed. Just as the sun can't be hidden behind clouds forever, your progress is casting a light on everything they hoped would stay in the dark. Every new milestone you achieve makes their efforts to undermine you seem increasingly futile as they watch your strength continue to grow. It's a humbling, even humiliating experience for them to see you thrive while they remain stuck in the same place. They thought they could break you, stop you, or hold you back, but they were wrong. Now, they're forced to face the reality they once tried so hard to ignore. While they were focused on pulling you down, you were steadily climbing, moving toward a future they can't even comprehend. The stone the builders rejected has become the cornerstone. Psalm 118:22. That's the essence of your journey. You were once overlooked, underestimated, and rejected, but now your rise is undeniable, and it's making them question everything they once thought about you. Ultimately, they're realizing that your journey is unstoppable, a force too powerful to be dimmed. The more they watch you grow, the more it unsettles them, because it highlights exactly what they lack. Every step you take exposes their stagnation, their inability to move forward, and no amount of denial or distraction can change that. It's like they've built a cage around themselves, and the bars are growing tighter with each milestone you pass. As you grow, they shrink into the shadow of their own choices. And the worst part, They realize they can't stop it. They're powerless in the face of your unstoppable rise. The very thing they tried to destroy has now become their greatest reminder of everything they've failed to achieve. Have you noticed how their discomfort grows as your success continues? How the more you grow, the more they try to cover up their own lack of progress. The question they must face is this: how long can they continue pretending that their attempts to break you were anything but an illusion? As your growth amplifies, it becomes impossible for them to hide behind the facade they've carefully constructed. The more you rise, the more they are confronted with the truth of what they've failed to do. And in the end, they'll be left to ask themselves, what will be the cost of their bitterness and envy when your journey's already written in the stars? Number 6. The universe has turned their allies to doubters. Your enemies once felt confident in their power, surrounded by a circle of allies who supported their every move and played along with their schemes. They believed that by gathering those who shared their resentment or fell for their manipulations, they'd created an unbreakable network to bring you down. But here's the twist. The universe has a remarkable way of revealing the truth, and slowly, those very allies are beginning to see through the facade. The loyalty they once had to your enemies is starting to weaken as doubt quietly creeps in. For there is nothing hidden that will not be disclosed, and nothing concealed that will not be known or brought out into the open. Luke 8:17. Their once steady allegiance is now cracking as they begin to notice the inconsistencies in the stories they were told and the cracks in the armor of those they trusted. They're realizing, little by little, that they may have sided with someone who wasn't entirely honest. What once seemed like a just cause is now looking less certain, and those who stood by your enemy's side are now questioning everything. Their allegiance was never based on integrity. It was built on manipulation and false pretenses. Now that the truth is seeping through, they're starting to see they've been pulled into someone else's vendetta. Someone who isn't as upright or justified as they once thought. As this realization settles in, the loyalty they felt is turning into mistrust and skepticism. The universe is orchestrating a poetic shift, and your enemies are left dealing with the consequences of their deceit. The wicked man flees, though no one pursues, but the righteous are as bold as a lion. Proverbs 28:1. The very betrayal they aimed at you is now cycling back, causing betrayal within their own circle. Allies who were once steadfast are now pulling back, doubting motives, questioning intentions, and distancing themselves from what they now see as a sinking ship. The people they leaned on for support, the ones they counted on to carry out their schemes, are now the ones walking away. What they never expected, what they couldn't control, is happening right before their eyes. Their carefully constructed web of allies is unraveling, one thread at a time. Those who once believed in their narrative, who were complicit in their deceit, are now seeing the cracks and pulling away one by one. What's so striking is how much this mirrors the story of Judas, who betrayed Jesus for 30 pieces of silver, only to be left to face the consequences of his actions alone. Judas went to the chief priests and said, "What are you willing to give me if I deliver him over to you?" They counted out for him 30 pieces of silver. Matthew 26:14-15. Judas thought he was securing his position with the betrayal, but in the end he was left isolated, forsaken by those who once accepted him. Similarly, your enemies are watching their own circle fragment, their supporters abandoning them just as they abandoned you. This is an unraveling they never anticipated. They assumed they could control the narrative indefinitely, that their manipulation would keep everyone in line. But the truth has a way of revealing itself, and now their circle is fragmenting. The loyalty they once took for granted is disappearing, and the support they once wielded is vanishing, one ally at a time. The betrayal they orchestrated has come full circle, and now they're forced to confront the fallout on their own. What do you think your enemies are feeling as they watch their support crumble? How long will it take before they realize that the very people they depended on are now walking away, leaving them alone with the consequences of their actions? It's a humbling experience, isn't it? And what's even more powerful is knowing that this shift isn't by their design. It's the universe at work, turning their allies into doubters, revealing the truth they never wanted to confront. Number 7. Every step forward for you is their reminder of failure. Every step you take forward is like a mirror reflecting your enemy's failure back at them, and they can't look away. No matter how much they tried to derail you, here you are, moving ahead with strength they underestimated and resilience they could never match. Your progress, each milestone, each success, is undeniable proof that they were never powerful enough to hold you back, and that's the bitter truth they're now forced to live with. No weapon forged against you will prevail, and you will refute every tongue that accuses you. Isaiah 54:17. Every single attempt to sabotage you has only fueled your growth, and now they must face the reality that they were powerless to stop you. As you keep rising, it's not just your achievements that haunt them, it's the reality of their own limitations. They threw everything they had at you, every trick, every plot, every effort to knock you down. They expected you to crack, to falter, to fail, but instead, all they see now is someone who not only survived, but thrived. Your progress is an unspoken testament to your strength, a bold declaration that they were never strong enough to break you. In contrast, their own weakness stands exposed for all to see. I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me. Philippians 4:13. While they sought to tear you down, they didn't account for the divine strength that empowered you to rise. And what's worse for them is they can't seem to stop watching. They're drawn to your journey, compelled to see what you accomplish next. Every new level you reach is another blow to their ego, another painful reminder of their own failure. Each success you achieve erodes their sense of self-worth just a little more. It's as if they can't look away from the evidence of their own defeat, even though every moment spent watching you succeed only deepens their frustration and sense of inadequacy. Deep down, they're realizing something they never wanted to admit. They lost the moment they tried to break you. For we know that in all things God works for the good of those who love him, who have been called according to his purpose. Romans 8:28. Their attempts to undermine you have backfired. What they thought would destroy you has instead become the fuel for your growth. And now, every victory you achieve serves as a constant reminder of their own failure. They're haunted by the fact that they wasted precious energy trying to tear down someone who was simply unbreakable. As you continue to reach new heights, they are left replaying their failures, unable to escape the reality of their own limitations. They can no longer deny the truth. They underestimated you. Every win of yours serves as a reminder of how completely they miscalculated, how utterly they failed in their attempts to destroy you. And while you focus on your continued success, they are stuck, endlessly reflecting on their own mistakes. What do you think they're feeling as they watch your every step forward? How long can they continue to deny that their efforts were futile? The more you rise, the more they must confront the undeniable truth of their own failure. Can they continue to live in denial, or will they eventually have to face the reality that they were never powerful enough to break you? Number 8. They're forced to confront their own mediocrity. Your success has become a relentless mirror reflecting everything your enemies wish they could ignore about themselves. They once saw themselves as powerful, capable, even exceptional, convinced that they were ahead of the game, far superior to others. But now, Faced with your growth and resilience, they're starting to see the undeniable limits of their own abilities, and it's hitting them harder than they anticipated. Pride goes before destruction, a haughty spirit before a fall. Proverbs 16:18. They wanted to believe they were the ones in control, the ones who could dominate and rise to the top without effort. But your perseverance and progress are revealing a truth they've tried to outrun for far too long. They built their sense of superiority on a foundation of deception, and now that foundation is crumbling. They relied on tearing others down to feel important, to elevate themselves at the expense of others. But without that constant need to belittle or undermine, they're left with nothing substantial to show for their efforts. Every step you take forward serves as a reminder of the growing gap between who they pretend to be and who they truly are. Do not deceive yourselves. If any one of you thinks he is something when he is nothing, he deceives himself. Galatians 6:3. They are beginning to see that while they were so focused on your journey, they neglected their own potential for growth. Instead of working on themselves and striving for genuine improvement, they took shortcuts, relied on schemes, and thought they could manipulate their way to success. Now, they're forced to confront the result of their actions. An ordinary, stagnant version of themselves they never wanted to admit was real. The worst part for them is that they can't escape this realization. As you continue to rise, your progress stands as a constant reminder that true power doesn't come from manipulation or taking shortcuts. It comes from within, from resilience, consistency, and integrity. The righteous will flourish like a palm tree. They will grow like a cedar of Lebanon. Psalm 92:12. They are beginning to see, perhaps for the first time, that the strength they projected was built on nothing but illusion, a carefully crafted image that had no substance. This realization is brutal. It's humbling in a way they never anticipated. They thought they were exceptional, that they had everything figured out, but now they're left with the raw truth. They are not the powerful figures they once imagined themselves to be. They are not the victors they envisioned. They are simply people trapped by their own insecurities and shortcuts. And here you are, steadily moving forward, thriving despite their efforts to derail you. Your success is no longer just a reminder of what they couldn't destroy, but also a glaring reflection of what they never had the courage or capability to become. Have you noticed how the closer you get to your goals, the more they are forced to confront their own lack of progress? How long can they keep pretending that they are superior when your growth exposes the limitations of their own efforts? It's a sobering thought for them, isn't it? The truth is clear. The real measure of success is not in tearing others down or taking shortcuts, but in building yourself up with integrity and perseverance. And that's something they will have to accept, whether they want to or not. Number 9. Their attempts at control have become their chains. In their relentless desire to manipulate your steps and script your life, your enemies have unwittingly locked themselves into the very traps they set for you. Obsessed with holding power over you, they've fallen into a prison of their own creation, trapped in a loop of schemes, resentments, and futile tactics. Each time they try to pull you back into their grasp, they tighten the chains around themselves. Their energy, which could have lifted their lives or fostered growth, is now wasted in the pursuit of controlling someone who has already broken free. Imagine their days, constantly replaying your past, searching for weaknesses and planning their next step, yet getting nowhere. They are consumed by a vendetta that has no victory. They are shackled to a bitterness that leads them in circles. The Bible reminds us in Proverbs 26:27, "Whoever digs a pit will fall into it. If someone rolls a stone, it will roll back on them." Their intentions to dominate you have backfired, chaining them instead. They are, ironically, mere players in a game they designed, enslaved by the negativity they intended for you, but you've transcended. While they obsess over you, replaying the past and plotting the future, you are living freely, unbound by their attempts. They're caught in a battle they cannot win, a war that only they're waging, and every move they make proves they are trapped in a cycle of their own defeat. Do they realize they are prisoners of their own making, or are they too blinded by their pursuit to see that they're the ones ensnared? Number 10. The trust they manipulated has turned to mistrust. The trust they once twisted for their advantage is unraveling into deep mistrust. The web of manipulation they so carefully crafted is falling apart, thread by thread, as truth pierces through their deceptions. Those they once controlled, the friends, allies, and supporters they swayed with lies and partial truths, are beginning to see the cracks. The false image they projected is giving way to suspicion as people start to realize they were pulled into a scheme built on deceit and division. Their game is backfiring. The Bible warns in Luke 8:17, "For nothing is hidden that will not be made manifest, nor is anything secret that will not be known and come to light." The very lies they relied upon are now working against them. Those who once believed their stories, who sided with them against you, are now questioning the motives behind every word. The manipulated trust has turned into a glaring spotlight, revealing not just the lies about you, but also the dishonesty they used to control others. It's no longer about you, it's about the betrayal others feel upon realizing they were mere pawns in a self-serving game. The followers who once stood by them are now pulling back, hesitant to extend their loyalty to someone who has proven so untrustworthy. The power they thought they held is slipping as those around them withdraw in suspicion and doubt. This crumbling trust leaves them isolated, stranded in the ruins of their manipulation. Can they even trust themselves now? Or has their foundation grown too weak to hold up any longer? Number 11. They are fighting shadows in the dark. What began as a calculated attempt to bring you down has spiraled into an unending nightmare for them. They're no longer battling you, they're wrestling with shadows, phantoms of their own creation. Their desire to harm you has transformed into something far darker, as their mind becomes clouded by a fear they don't even recognize. Each thought, each action is consumed by paranoia and the illusion that you remain a threat. Yet the truth is, you're not the one they're really fighting. Their true enemy is within. In their obsessive need to control and defeat you, they've constructed a reality where they're constantly on edge, grappling with dangers that don't exist. Every move they make is haunted by the fallout of their own actions, by the lies they've spun, the manipulations they've set into motion, and the weight of their own guilt. It's as if they're chasing a ghost only they can see, becoming more frantic and ensnared in their delusion with each passing day. The Bible warns us in Isaiah 57:20, "But the wicked are like the troubled sea, when it cannot rest, whose waters cast up mire and dirt." Their spirit, once set on controlling you, is now caught in a ceaseless storm of fear and self-doubt. Do they even realize they're ensnared, or are they too lost in this self-made nightmare to see the truth? The more they try to regain control, the deeper they sink into the chaos they created. They're mistaking their own fears for real threats, blurring the line between reality and their distorted perceptions. Trapped in the tangled web of their own lies, they're swinging at shadows, endlessly caught in a battle against themselves. Number 12. Their own ambition is now their curse. What once seemed like a noble pursuit to outshine and surpass you has become a relentless burden they cannot shake. Their ambition, driven not by genuine purpose but by envy and resentment, has turned on them. They didn't aim for greatness to uplift themselves, they pursued it solely to overshadow you, to satisfy a need for validation at your expense. But now, that very ambition, rooted in comparison and rivalry, has transformed into a curse that haunts their every step. While you've found peace, moving forward with clarity and purpose, they remain trapped in a cycle of discontent. Their achievements, once symbols of success, now feel hollow and unsatisfying. Every milestone reached seems like a fleeting victory because it was never about true growth. It was about staying one step ahead of you, yet you're no longer in their race. You've transcended their game. The Bible reminds us in Galatians 6:4, each one should test their own actions, then they can take pride in themselves alone, without comparing themselves to someone else. Their focus on you instead of personal purpose has left them unfulfilled. Their ambition has become a void that no accolade or accomplishment can fill. Every step forward feels like running in place, a chase for something perpetually out of reach. Can they see that their ambition, once their driving force, is now their greatest downfall? What they once viewed as success has now left them with emptiness, as they realize that no external victory can soothe an unsettled soul. They're not building anything meaningful. They're only fueling a fire of dissatisfaction, struggling to escape a race with no finish line. In the end, everything that your enemies thought would break you has become the very thing that unravels them. Their schemes, their manipulations, and their obsession with controlling you have only served to expose their own weaknesses and insecurities. Every step they took to undermine your progress has only accelerated their downfall. As you continue to rise, they are left to confront the ghosts of their own making, caught in a relentless cycle of jealousy, fear, and dissatisfaction. For the Lord is righteous, he loves justice, the upright will see his face. Psalm 11:7. They thought they were playing the game, but what they failed to realize is that the game was never about competition. It was about growth, resilience, and authenticity. You didn't need to tear others down to rise. You simply kept moving forward, anchored in your truth. And now, as they fight shadows and wrestle with the consequences of their own actions, they can't help but watch as their world crumbles around them. The universe has a way of balancing things, of bringing to light what was once hidden, and your enemies are living proof of this cosmic law. The way of the wicked is like deep darkness. They do not know what makes them stumble. Proverbs 4:19. Their manipulation has transformed into mistrust, their ambition into a curse, and their desperate attempts to control you have only imprisoned them. As they struggle with the collapse of their false victories, they're forced to watch you thrive. A reminder that true power comes not from tearing others down, but from elevating yourself in the face of adversity. For I know the plans I have for you, declares the Lord, plans to prosper you and not to harm you, plans to give you a hope and a future. Jeremiah 29:11. So let them stew in their paranoia, let them face the consequences of their deceit, because while they're stuck in the web of their own making, you are free, unshackled, and unstoppable. The tables have turned, and now they're the ones left in the shadows, watching as you claim the victory they never saw coming. If this message resonated with you, if you feel the energy of the universe shifting in your favor, make sure you don't miss out on what's coming next. Hit that subscribe button, join the family, and stay tuned for more truth, power, and the clarity you need to continue thriving while your enemies face the consequences of their actions. You don't want to miss what's coming next. Subscribe now and let's rise together. God bless you. And if you feel moved to support this channel through Super Thanks, thank you so much for your generosity. Whether you choose to donate or simply continue to watch and share, your support means the world to us. We are grateful for you, and we pray for God's blessings to overflow in your life, bringing you peace, prosperity, and strength. Thank you for being a part of this community, and may you continue to rise and shine.